think we'll go ahead and we'll get started. If anybody else joins, Nancy will keep an eye on that and get them logged in. But I appreciate everybody for joining and coming to learn a little bit about HR Learn today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Sean Moss. I'm the director of HR Learn. And we're going to take a little bit of time today just to kind of talk to you about what HR Learn is, how we fit in the federal training market, and what we bring to the table. If you've attended any of our previous webinars, it's going to be in much the same format, but we appreciate you joining, and we'll be very conscious of your time, but we'll get a lot of good training in here today and get us on the right path. So before we dive into it all, I wanted to go over our general housekeeping rules. We do this for every webinar. We're going to be pretty concise today. It's kind of like I said, I know it's a short work week for a lot of us, and so we're cramming in a lot of work in shorter periods of time. So we're going to be very conscious of your time and resources in joining us today. We're not going to have any breaks. We're not going to take pauses or anything along those lines. We will ask questions at the end of each topic. I'll let you know that we're done with that one and ask if there are any questions. You can post those questions at any time during the discussion in the chat. You can either send them directly to Admin at HR Learn, which is Nancy, and she'll make sure they get asked, or you can pose them at the end of each section if you want to wait till that time. We definitely ask that you stay on mute. That way, we don't interrupt anybody while they're speaking or go over anyone. And then, of course, just be respectful of everybody's time. But I don't think we'll have any problems along those lines. Today, we really wanted to cover three major topics. So I wanted to go over these three main topics with you guys to kind of introduce you a little bit to HR Learn. So first, we're going to talk about federal HR in our current work environment. We've been through a lot the last few years. It's shifted the way things are working in the federal government. And we wanted to kind of talk about some of the challenges that there are in training and development within that field, and then dive into how HR Learn fits into that. What do we look to do, and what do we bring to the table? And then how do we offer maybe some different options that aren't necessarily on the table right now with normal standard federal HR training. We'll be sure that like I said, we're going to take breaks after each one of those sections. So we'll make sure that we get all your questions in. So if you have any, please feel free to ask, and we'll make sure we address those. So to get started, I wanted to talk about the current work environment that we have right now. I've been doing federal work for longer than it seems. I think I've done close to 11 years worth at this point, and it has been a growth opportunity for sure going across that. And as we look at the current federal HR environment, there's a lot of changes that are coming down the line. To start, recruiting new talent has shifted. A few months back, some of you may have had the opportunity to join us, but we hosted a webinar with the Marcom Group, and they specialize in federal, well, and not even just federal, but in having the hiring fairs. And those career fairs and all that have changed. They showed some pictures throughout the presentations of career fairs that they had prior to the pandemic in 2019, and the numbers that they had post-pandemic this year in 2021. And those career hiring fairs are different, and they're moving into a virtual environment, which is very nuanced there. It's also that, a lot of our recruiting standards are shifting. We don't get to meet in large groups anymore. We don't get to get together very often, at least not as much as before. There's also a new group of employees that are coming in, and they are used to doing their work in a different manner. They apply online, they do everything virtually. And so we need to make sure in the federal space that we're reaching them. The second area is upskilling or career development. And it's more important than ever. There was a study that was done at the beginning of 2021, and they interviewed or questioned and surveyed roughly 19,000 new hires all across the workforce. It wasn't just federal. And 93% of those new hires selected that professional skill development was a huge portion or a huge point in the decision to take a new job. Employees really want to be brought on board and developed and not just left stagnant. And so upskilling talent and developing talent to continue to grow throughout that time is a huge portion of what we're looking at now in our current work environments. And the third, and probably one of the most often overlooked ones, is leadership involvement. There's a really large need right now for leadership to be involved with their employees, with their employee development, with their upskilling, and ensuring that they're understanding what their employees are going through. When we look at this, I speak from experience, and so I can only tell a little bit, and that's going to be my part of the story. But I know when I joined right out of school. I got out of school and ended up lucky enough to get a position and started doing federal HR work, started going through this process. And I noticed there were different approaches to a lot of the trainings. Initially, as I joined different agencies and started doing different tasks, I was put in different directions. Some leaders asked me to shadow for the first few weeks, and I was put with a senior rep and asked to shadow with them and make sure I followed their processes and asked questions and went through that. And shadowing and that type of training on the spot is very valuable. It definitely, when you're sitting with someone who may have 15, 20 plus years of experience, it gives you a lot of knowledge that you might not get just reading a textbook or going through a module. But it also has some difficulties, right? It needs to be a part of an entire training plan for your employee. And going into it, a lot of times it affects the employee that you're shadowing, their development, or not their development, but their output. They're a little bit slower because they're helping you and they're walking you through this process and they're going through those things. And often if you don't have a strong backbone to build off of, a strong knowledge base to build that knowledge that you're gaining from the shadowing off of, it becomes difficult to put the pieces together. You might remember key pieces, but not all the nuance that goes in between. Eventually, at least in my development, I was sent to several classes. Some were online, most were in person. A lot of it prior to the pandemic was long form in classroom training, and it would take you away from the job site for a certain period of time. You would go and you would learn. And those are great. It is a little more difficult to do long form, 8-hour-a-day training sessions online. That does get to be a little difficult. When you're in the classroom, that's great, but you're away from your site. And often that can affect the leadership approach to it because they're obviously losing a resource for 3-5 days and you're sent away learning that way. Throughout that whole time, at least in my experience, I did continue to develop, but it required that I was very diligent in finding answers. It was consistently asking partners, asking peers, asking everybody around you for help in different scenarios. When you go to a training course, you generally get a lot of knowledge and you come back, and when you have to apply it, it gets to be a little difficult to put the pieces together every now and then. You remember, oh, I know I need to do this, but I don't quite remember how to get there. And so that social learning aspect of being able to turn around and ask the person next to you, I forgot this piece, can you help me, is a big piece of that, and something that we'll talk about a little bit later as part of HR Learn. Eventually, I did get to a leadership perspective and I joined the management group, and I had a team of HR specialists. And one of the things that stood out there is it became very clear to me that you had to have a training plan for your employee. And if you didn't, a lot of times the hustle and bustle of our current work life makes that get lost by the wayside. And if you don't, you're not developing your employee to the highest extent possible. And that often harms not only the employee, but your team as a whole, the development that you have, the output that you're looking to do, all those things that you're looking to complete. But it became very difficult because even if I would sign an employee up for a training course, I often didn't know what happened from there. I was kind of left hanging at that point. It was, I hope they completed the class. I may get a picture or a copy of their certificate that they completed the course, but I don't know how they did in the course. Maybe they passed, but they really struggled in a specific area. And if I knew that, I can sit them with someone that's really strong in that area, just to make sure we shore up that gap. And it took a lot of effort for any of our management team to gather that information and build a full picture of how an employee was doing and how we can better assist that employee. And so that was kind of my experience and part of what brought me to HR Learn, what made it something that I'm passionate about, that we want to bring into the federal workspace. But I don't want you to take only my word for it. We have a large group of people that help us, a lot of SMEs on this, and they've got their own experiences that they've gone through. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce two of them. These two are instructors for us. They've helped us with our individual courses, and they're going to talk a little bit about their experiences in the federal government as well. So the first is going to be Robin, and I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see Robin a little bit better. It's going to be Robin Scott. She's a big piece of our recruitment courses, and she's helped us a lot with that. So I'm going to give Robin the floor and let her tell us a little bit about her experience.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, as Sean said, my name is Robin. I'm Robin Scott, and I have about 15 years of hands-on HR experience, with 12 of those specifically in the federal space as a human resources specialist in recruitment and placement. And that's been between both as a permanent federal employee as well as a contractor across multiple federal agencies, which include the Civilian Human Resources Agency, which is under, it's a DoD agency, Veterans Affairs, OPM, and USDA. And I've also worked in the private sector for about 3 years as an HR business partner. So with those experiences combined, you know, it's really afforded me a keen insight of really some private sector efficiency mixed with, you know, sound federal HR practices. I started, and it's now called Pathways, but at the time, my first federal appointment was through the FSIP program, which is an internship program. And I had went back to school and had no idea how difficult it is to onboard and be hired and recruited through the federal government, because frankly, it was pretty easy for me. My HR professor in school sent the link out and said that the local Corps of Engineers office was hiring a student, needed an internship, and needed someone who was either currently in school or who had recently graduated. So I saw it. I think I sent a manual resume. I know that's unheard of, but I went and bought some good stock paper and everything. And because that's what I was told to do in my HR classes, that it couldn't be too flimsy. And printed my resume out on that stock paper. I both sent it electronically and went and hand delivered it to the HR office so that they could put a face to the name to allow myself to stand out from the other candidates. And it worked because I got the gig. At the time, that was what we called a non-competitive appointment, meaning I did not have to go through USA Jobs to apply at the time. So they were able to just take my resume off the street, as we say, along with my college transcripts, and hire me. And it was pretty easy. I believe I started maybe 3 weeks later. Again, unheard of in today's time. It was even unheard of back then, honestly. So that's where I received my start. I started off as, I believe while I was a student, I was equivalent to a GS4. It wasn't in the GS system at the time. It was pay banding, and then converted out onto a GS5. And then when I graduated, immediately I was promoted to a GS7. So I was on what we call a 7, 9, 11. My position was a target GS11, which is considered to be journeyman level in the federal government. And every year I received my promotions on time. I worked up, I was hungry, I was an eager beaver, asking for extra projects, even though I was in recruitment and placement. So I would be the one responsible for some job analysis and speaking directly to the hiring managers. I would also ask for other assignments outside of staffing. I would ask to be trained in classification. At the time, they had those functions separate. And as well as employee relations, just so I could really expand my skill set. As I said, I was very ambitious because I had come from the private sector. So I really stood out amongst some of my senior level HR staffers who had been lifelong government employees. And so I moved up pretty quickly. And as soon as I hit the GS11, guess what? I was looking for my GS12. As soon as I hit my 1 year, what we call time and grade of being a GS11, I was looking for the next GS12. Along the way, I received a lot of on-the-job training. I had what we call, it was called an individual development plan, or IDP for short, which is what the Department of the Army calls it. So it had some set classes or concepts that benchmarks that I needed to have by the time I was being promoted to the next grade level. Did we accomplish all of those? No, because frankly, it wasn't as organized as it probably should have been. So it really took a lot of proaction, I should say, on my part, being proactive, on my part, to really seek out resources and align myself with mentors and to make sure that I was checking those boxes. So when I had the opportunity to go to some formal training, which at the time they were flying you in person, I know that seems like ancient history right now, flying you in person to go to either an OPM course or agency specific course. And so that's what I did. And that was able to really fill a lot of those gaps that I was receiving in on-the-job training, because a lot of the senior specialists who were assigned to me, they were too busy and I was bothering them most of the time, honestly. And so I had to be really politically savvy on when was a good time to ask and trying to figure things out on my own, which really helped with my development as well, my research skills. But what I found was, I noticed this even as a junior staffer, was as I was going to these trainings, some were in person, some were starting to be online as well. I noticed that some of it was not as relevant as it probably should be. Some of the practices maybe weren't best practices anymore. And sometimes it was apparent that the training was developed by someone who was not a federal employee, maybe someone who used to be a while back, because I could tell by some of the language as far as human resources specialists is what we were called at the time. But I know when the HR arm was being created, 70s and 80s, they were referred to, or we were referred to as personnelist. So I could tell that some of the training was dated, or it was not written or developed by someone who had performed these duties directly. So usually in the beginning is when myself, as well as my peers, we could tell right away if we were going to pay this training any mind. And some of the training would lose credibility pretty early in the early stages, because it was either inaccurate or no longer relevant or didn't apply directly to our agency. So it wasn't something that we could implement right away. So along my career, as I moved up, I ended up moving to another agency. I was able to get my promotion, went back to the private sector as well, came back to government, and I was really developing this toolkit, this personal toolkit. And as I started to do some research to open my own business and open my own firm, I started to develop some things of what I would like to have in place if I'm the one, making the decisions as far as the curriculum and the training and development, and mixing things up. Some people are visual learners, while someone need hands-on, and a combination of both. And is the training relevant? And are these actionable items where it's something you can implement right away before you forget all about it? And that complete foundation really is what resonated with me when I saw the opportunity to be a consultant with HR Learn. Is just to have an opportunity to be that subject matter expert, to help develop curriculum or perform some of these, or perform a live webinar where I know that I'm speaking the audience's language, or I know that they're seeing language and jargon that they're used to seeing, to lend some credibility to the coursework. So I have been a major, major, I don't know. Let me humble myself. I have been a contributor and an instructor for HR Learn, just lending some of that direct federal staffing expertise and experiences in developing this coursework, because I understand the pain points from several perspectives, as the HR specialist, as now a hiring manager, as well as what the applicant's experience is, and recalling some of those struggles and lending some of that knowledge to ensure that the end user of HR Learned training offerings does not experience some of the things that I experienced. So, but yes, I've been in the HR trenches, so to speak, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, some of those struggles and confusion at times, especially as a junior specialist and even as a senior specialist going from agency to agency, wanted to make sure that a lot of those gaps were filled as people are experiencing the HR Learn curriculum.
Thank you. Don't sell yourself short, definitely a major contributor. So we appreciate all that Robin has done for us. So thank you very much. Next, if you've attended any of our webinars, you definitely know Dave Backrack, who's done a lot of work with us as well. So I'm going to give Dave a couple minutes here to introduce himself. We're glad that he could make it. I know there was some doubt there for a second, so we appreciate you making it today.
Sure thing. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I appreciate getting to follow Robin because I love hearing people's career stories. It's so personal and so individualized, and I get to share mine as well. So I entered on a 9-11-12 career ladder, not understanding exactly what that was or how it worked. And I started at the Justice Department, loved it. And like Robin, I got picked up. I submitted an application. It was of very small impact on me. However I applied, I probably wrote 2 or 3 paragraphs about why you should hire me and sent it off. I got hired very easily. I think within 1 minute of sitting down in the interview, they told me that I was exactly who they were looking for. And on day 1, they said, we have 30 days to train, and then you're traveling across the country to represent the Attorney General before thousands of police departments. It was the greatest job of my life. Will never, probably will never equal how great that job was. Once I was in a policy position at grade 13, and my agency was kind of legislatively getting wrapped up and closed out, I was looking for other opportunities. I applied to about 60 other federal jobs as a career tenure, GS-13 management analyst, and I got 0 interviews. Well, 1 interview, 0 offers, and it was just sort of there. So as my agency shrunk from 200 people down to 100 people and continued to shrink, I was thinking, well, what's the deal with this job application process? I can't get a job. Eventually, I get a thanks but no thanks letter from IRS saying, you've applied to be an agent, federal agent with us at the 5 level, and you're not going to get it. So I was intrigued. I mean, I was angry. I was, of course, laughing at it because that's what I do for a lot of stuff. But I was, how do I not qualify for a 5? How is that possible? I was kind of mad at myself for even seeking out an 8th grade demotion. Anyway, so at the same time as I'm mad and I'm laughing, I'm also intrigued. What am I doing wrong? How does this work? So I got an offer to learn federal HR by leaving the government, ironically, and I did that. And I left the government and I went to a firm that did federal HR contracting, and I learned how to design positions, and I learned how to fill positions. I learned how to recruit using Schedule A authority. I learned how to help get Schedule A authority. I learned piece by piece from an outsider's perspective how best to make federal HR work for the agencies. And I think it's that perspective that I bring with me here to the HR Learn environment, where I've developed these techniques that are quick. Our new class, the 1 hour PD, it's no one else is offering that. No one else is thinking, how quickly can we write this PD? HR offices don't think that way. And to be honest, even program offices don't think that way. Program offices say that job descriptions will take, 6 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 months, a year and a half, we don't know. And they're not accustomed to measuring it in hours. My thing is, why can't we do that? Why is it okay for us to sit here and complain that we're overworked as federal HR practitioners and not seek out a solution to that? Bam, 1 hour position description. Can it be done? Yes, it can. Is it done? Yes, it is. So I really like the idea of a direct, specific, step-by-step way to address the challenges we all face by using templates, using things that we have done already, not starting from scratch, taking something that works and applying it over and over and over again, but it's also customized to each time. So even if you're recruiting an accountant this time and tomorrow you're going to recruit a different accountant, how can we save time to get that second posting almost ready to go, but also customize it? That's what I want to bring to my clients, whether they be HR offices or program offices or hiring units. I want to bring this sense that on the HR side, here's how long it should take you to do this, and here's the method that's going to allow you. And on the program side, you're going to invest maybe an hour's time total in these HR processes, and the rest is on HR. And really just clarifying who's doing what. Let's get this going. We should be able to post a job in a week from the time you submit your requisition under normal circumstances, and under emergency circumstances, much faster than that. So my clients are dubious, and I take great delight in showing them, this is not some kind of miracle. This is not some kind of skirting the rules. This is how it can be done. And if you want, it is how it will be done. So that's what I'm hoping that people get from these classes.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a growth experience for all of us, and we've been learning how to put this all together and get it out to you guys in the best possible way. So before I dive in, our next section, I wanted to actually show you HR Learn. So I'm gonna share my screen. We'll show you the system, and we'll start diving into our pillars within HR Learn and how we present that to you as a product. But before we do so, are there any questions? Anything we might have left unsaid? I don't think there's any in the chat, Nancy.
No, there's no questions as of yet. However, I do want to give the opportunity to, if you do have any questions, you can unmute yourself or send them in the chat, however you please.
Awesome. Well, we'll move on. If there are any questions, like she said, just drop them and we'll get them answered as quickly as possible. But everyone can see my screen here. This is HR Learn itself. And when we look at HR Learn, we have 3 main pillars that we kind of work off of. We work off of training, obviously being the backbone of everything, making sure that our training is timely, it's accurate, it's efficient, everything along those lines. We work with, I kind of mentioned upskilling, but training leads to that continuous development. And then obviously the engagement that we need and how we cultivate that engagement and build the community that we want. So first, to talk about training. When we put together our training here, we were very specific that we didn't want to have training that was similar to what's out on the market right now. Specifically where you needed to send away for a week at a time, 3 to 5 days, traveling wherever and taking a course in the classroom. It's kind of an old way of doing it. What we wanted to do was build training that was specific and direct and allowed you, the learner or your employee, to take it at their pace. specifically self-paced learning that was dedicated to fit within schedules that you may have. Everybody's different, everyone's unique, and we needed to be aware and cognizant of that. So all of our training is self-paced, it's direct, and it allows you, the learner, to dive into each section at your own pace and get the most out of it in the shortest period of time. We talk to our SMEs like Robin and Dave and others, and we put together this information. We put together the training with the help of obviously the SMEs and our content development experts. And they helped us put it together in such a way that it flowed well, that it was perfectly sectioned so that each section was complete and correct. There are knowledge checks in each section and so forth. But in our system here, you can see these 3 courses for the individual have been assigned. Dave mentioned his new course, and we'll talk about that later, the 1 hour PD. We also have some others, but you can see here that managers are able to assign courses to their users, or users are able to, learners are able to assign themselves courses. And when they do, they're able to log in and pick up right where they left off. Now, with our courses, we have 2 different types of training paths. We have pro courses, which are knowledge-based. They're here to just make sure you have all the information and that it's readily available to you. And then we have our plus courses, which are developed to be more comprehensive. Our plus courses include things like knowledge checks, final exams, and follow-up to ensure that the information that you learned is being used and applied to your job. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future here. So for example, this individual started our recruiting for government course, and you're able to see they're able to pick up at either the beginning of the course or where they left off. Every course that comes, especially in the pro program, does allow them to see, does have pre-exams or the quiz here, which kind of sets the base for what the course is going to be about. It's going to tell you a little bit more, kind of gauge your knowledge of where we're starting and help prime your mind to think this is what we're going to be learning about. And then it's going to continue forward. They also come with final exams that were developed by our experts here to make sure that the information that you learned is applicable. So our exams aren't simple yes/no questions. They are scenario-based, situational questions that allow us to understand that you were able to learn it and are able to apply the knowledge in a way that would be beneficial for your position. With all of this, there's a breadth of courses that go with it. We have recruiting for government here. We have 1 hour PD. We go into classification and many others that are in development or already out. And then the last aspect, and probably the most important aspect of our system as far as training is concerned, is we really focus a lot on social learning. Social learning is one of the big pieces that we use to ensure that that every user, every learner has the ability to gain as much knowledge as possible. If you remember at the beginning, we talked a little bit about our different scenarios, and some of that was having mentors or shadowing individuals or following people that might have more experience than we do and getting that knowledge and that help. And so we have several features that allow us to use that. The first is this feature right here called Ask the Expert. Now, when they're asking an expert a question, you can fill out this form that comes up here on the right and ask any question related to the training that you've signed up for. So you may have taken a classification course, or you may have taken our recruiting courses, or any number of them, and you're able to ask a specific question that maybe you feel wasn't answered directly, or a scenario that you've come across that you're struggling with, and pose it directly to the instructors. So the experts are the instructors that come across. Dave and Robin have helped, as well as others. And it allows us to get that information out. Once you've submitted the question, you're able to then see additional questions that have been asked in the past. You can see here, you're also able to search your question in the upper bar here. And if there are any answers that are related to it, it'll come up as a solution for you to look into. Many of these features here, the social learning features, are to build a community. We really focus on building a strong community that allows anyone to come in ask questions, share knowledge, share new possibilities in completing different tasks that they found, or maybe best practices for their specific agency, and share those options with all of us so that we can continue to build that community and build that knowledge base. In addition to this, you can see, you can ask all kinds of questions and get the answers and really build that out. There's also something that we call channels. Now, channels are kind of unique and it takes a while to explain them, but the easiest way is to liken it to like a Facebook group. Essentially, when you purchase a course and you join, say, the recruitment course, then you are added to a channel, and that channel is all about recruitment. So individuals have the ability to share knowledge, share documents, share videos or podcasts, any type of file or document that they want to, that they feel might be relevant. We have moderators that go through it and make sure that everything's obviously appropriate and in the correct channel. But you're able to then view what's been shared in the past. So for example, we often share our previous webinars, and that allows individuals to join. Podcasts have been shared. Dave shared one in the past that he was a part of. And these help build some of that knowledge base. As you join other classes and take those trainings, your channel list grows. So this one's a little bit smaller because they are taking some of the first few courses. But as it continues to grow, they're able to build that knowledge base and join those groups to continue to build their A community and B their knowledge. So that kind of covers training. Initially. The second one that we do that we talked about is continuous development or upskilling. You know, we've got to if we're going through the path of an employee, we obviously brought them on board, we've gotten them trained, they're doing the work, but we don't want to leave them there. We got to continue that development and keep pushing them forward. So there's a couple ways that we directly assist with that. The first one is our courses. Our course selection is, I mentioned the Pro and Plus courses. They are continuously being reviewed and updated if anything needs to be corrected. Maybe new policies came out, something changed. We make sure that we are on top of everything along those lines continuously. We also have multiple courses in development that are timely and needed at that moment. So they'll be launched and able to help individuals at that time. The second thing we do is we do have a course catalog of 50 plus courses that are not necessarily just HR related, as federal HR related, but are more designed to help with your personal development. We cover topics, as you can see, from written and oral communication to management, building resilience, coaching, any number of things. And number of topics. These are very specific. We've curated these, and these are from a lot of the top providers in the world, places like Skillsoft and any number of the course providers. And they're also consistently under development and review. So we replace and add as needed to make sure that the courses that you have to select from are the best possible courses to continue your personal development. As a leader, if you're logging in and you're trying to assign courses to your team or to your agents, whoever they may be, you can also choose from these courses if you believe maybe they need some additional assistance with their oral communication. They got a presentation coming up and you want to make sure they're ready to go. You can assign them those courses and make sure that they're ready and viewable for them. We talk a little bit in our courses as well with post-pandemic work environments, working from home remotely, as well as going into the office and different things along those lines to make sure that everybody's prepared and ready across the board. And the final section that we talk about is engagement. And before I do that, I do have to leave the system to show you some of those things. Are there any questions about what we've gone over so far?
I don't see any as of yet. Give me 1 second. Oh, we do have a question. You mentioned live sessions directly related to the training. How frequently are those held?
Yeah, so our live sessions, we have two kinds. So that's a good question. I should have elaborated on that. So we have two kinds of live sessions. We have ones like this, where we do have free monthly webinars. They're topic-based. most of the time. Obviously, this one's a little bit more about HR Learn, but we cover everything from recruitment. Robin covered one about 3 myths in hiring, and Dave's covered quite a few subjects for us, including job titles and a couple other things. Those are monthly, those are free. You can get on our email list, and those just go out every month, and we do those. Inside the system, there are monthly webinars dedicated to the training courses, though, and those are a mix. They're topic-based in that they talk about the specific courses. So if you took a classification course, you will be able to enroll in the live session for that month. That might be about a specific topic. It'll be different than the one, say, for advanced classification or for recruitment. They're all a little bit different and unique. They're also not necessarily all 100% just topical based. They can be Q&A sessions where individuals are asked to bring their comments and their questions, and then they build from there. And there's an infinite number of scenarios that they can work with on that one. So I hope that clarifies it just a little bit more.
Thank you. There is another question.
Sure.
Can I request a one-on-one coaching with the SME, even if I haven't purchased training?
You can. So we do allow one-on-one coaching. Dave and Robin are 2 of them. We have other SMEs. And so you are able to request one-on-one coaching with them in half-hour increments. When you purchase a course, they're packaged a little bit differently. So if you purchase, say, a plus course, you get 4 free ones. And so you're essentially getting 2 hours of free. But you're building out that way. You can request the training or the coaching, though, one-on-one via our website. Currently, the site is being updated to allow the option to click on one-on-one training and send the email, but you can also complete it by just clicking on contact us and stating that you want to have training about a certain subject or coaching on that subject. And then we partner you directly with the individuals that'll be best suited to help you with that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Is a webinar the same thing as a free training?
A webinar is not. So I assume by free training, we're looking at the one-on-one coaching. You can ask any question you want in your one-on-one coaching. So it can be related directly to that. We would need to know like what your question is beforehand, so we can make sure that we hook you up with the correct expert. But if you sign up for one-on-one coaching, and you can ask any question at that point with them, and they'll be able to solve that with you and help you guide in the right direction. So that's kind of what we'll look at there.
Okay, thank you.
Else? Yeah,
I think
perfect.
that's it.
Awesome. So we're running a little low on time. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about specifically was engagement, which is engagement from both leadership and the learner. And there's a couple ways that we do this. First, you'll see here is leaderboards. Everybody loves gamification and training. So, the ability to see your peers and how they're doing in their training courses, the scores that they've got, everything's built off training or trophies and badges and a point score. So as individual learners continue to build out their knowledge base, they get additional points, and it allows to set up leaderboards. And it's often beneficial, especially if you have like a group. Let's say you have a group of HR specialists from the exact same agency that work together. It allows a little bit of camaraderie there. We also have the manager's dashboard. The manager's dashboard is one that I was really excited about. When an individual is logged in, their manager is able to create a profile in our system and be assigned as their leader or / manager. When that happens, they then have access to their employees' performance, and they're able to see the training courses and where they are, if they've completed them, if they haven't completed them, if they did, what their scores were, also where they struggled. So for example, if they got an 80 out of 100 on a test and they passed, that's great. But if they missed 20 of those questions in a specific area, then we need to be able to identify that they're struggling in one specific area and get them additional training. And the manager's dashboard gives a full overview of how each individual is doing in the courses that they've done. The last two we'll dive into a little bit more here. We have the Kirkpatrick learning model and branded agency experience. So the Kirkpatrick learning model is pretty famous. It was developed in the 50s, and it's a model of learning that allows you, both as an employer or a manager or leader, and the actual employee themselves, to measure the performance based on how they did in the training and how they performed after the training. It comes through 4 areas, so it's based on levels. So whenever you see the Kirkpatrick learning model mentioned in a learning program, you want to make sure that they have all 4. And so the first 2 are fairly straightforward. First, we gather the reaction from the employee. How did you feel about this training? Did it cover everything you expected? Do you feel like you learned a lot from this? You know, kind of how everything was going. Basically, their overall opinion of the training course itself. That piece helps us as well at HR Learn to understand if there are specific sections that maybe need to be fleshed out a little bit more, if there are areas that we can help the learners grow a little bit better in each class. I mentioned earlier that we do a consistent review of our courses, and this part helps us with that, to make sure that we're providing the most complete and comprehensive courses out there. Number 2 is learning. So did the student actually learn and have the ability to apply the knowledge that they have? So let's say they took the classification course. Are they able to then apply that knowledge of classification to a posting and to get into actually applying it to their job? Now, this is done through our knowledge checks. Our final exam specifically tests everything that they would need in order to apply this to a position. So that's our second level. We make sure that everything's good there and they pass the final exam. We continue to build with them until they pass the final exam to make sure that they're in the clear and they've garnered enough knowledge and skill set to move forward. Level 3 is where we start to get into the really good information. Level 3, following the training, we give it a little bit of time and we try to then follow up and indicate whether the employee feels that their performance has improved. Have they been able to use this knowledge and apply it directly to their job? Now, it all links together. So at the end, during the reaction period, we ask the employee how they felt about it and what they think will happen with their job in the future. And then we follow up with them again in stage 3 or level 3 and say, well, you told us that potentially you were going to get better at X. How did you feel that happened? And do you feel that you improved in this skill set? And the 4th one is probably my favorite, and that's the manager's buy-in. So as we ask in level 3, the employee, how they feel their performance has improved during the time that we allowed them to apply that knowledge, we follow up with the manager or the leader and ask them as well. We inform them that their agent or their specialist specifically indicated that they believe they were getting better at these skill sets, and have they been able to see a measured improvement? Once again, this whole learning model is really helpful for all parties involved. It allows the learner to see and actually contextualize what they've done, applied knowledge through a period of time, and see improvement. The manager now understands this is what I believe, this is what the employee believes they were getting better at, and I can see that improvement, or I can't see that improvement. And if I don't, why? And they're able to then work with their employee to move forward there. It also helps us at HR Learn. If I could talk, that would be great. And it allows us to understand how we can better serve the federal HR community, how we can provide training that maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit or have additional sections added, or whatever is needed in order to provide the most complete and comprehensive courses to build out from there. And then the last one is branded instances. We are lucky to have this unique ability to be able to allow an agency or an organization to have a fully branded instance that allows them to house their training with us, receive all the same features, and make it seem as if it's their direct training. So some of the things that go along with it, you get a fully customizable URL, so it looks as though it's directly related to your agency or organization. Your courses can be a mixture. It can be all HR Learn courses that are put on there. So anything like our classification, all those good things, we can put those on. It can also be a housing platform for all the training for your organization as well. So we can help you upload and create the trainings within HR Learn. So, and within this branded instance, so that it's all housed in one location. You're not asking employees to go to different locations and take different courses and do different things. And in addition, as I mentioned, you're going to get all the HR Learn features that go along with it. You're going to get, we talked about the Kirkpatrick learning model. You're going to get leaderboards. You're going to get the ability to track the manager's dashboard. All these different things will then be built into your training so that you'll be able to have a complete and comprehensive overview of everything there. And that's about it. Are there any questions? I know we covered a lot really fast in this last 20 minutes because we're running a little bit short on time. But does anybody have any additional questions? Anything that we can cover? Anything that I might have forgotten to cover for you guys?
I don't see any questions as of yet, Sean.
That's okay. That's awesome. The last thing I'll leave you guys with is Dave mentioned it earlier. We launched today, actually, our 1 hour position description course. It's a fully templated course where Dave walks you through specifically creating a position description within an hour or less if you get better at it. It's something we've put a lot of work into. Dave has done a ton of work in getting this put together and set up. And so we definitely thank him for all of that. We're excited to get it out there. There is a discount code on here. If you'd like to use it, you just go to our website, use that code, and you'll be able to move forward and get a little bit of a discount on it. But we're really excited to get that launched and get that out there. If you do have additional questions in the future, anything along those lines, you can visit hrlearn.com. You can shoot me an email, anything that is needed. I'm happy to help. And otherwise, I appreciate your time. We finished 6 minutes early. That's a winning mentality right there. We're good at this point. So if there's nothing else, I'll let you guys have your 6 minutes back.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.